Sir Jim Ratcliffe has just completed his latest bombshell interview about Manchester United, and today we're going to dissect it all. He spoke about Ruben Amorim, he spoke about the Glazer family, he discussed the academy right now, job cuts, doubling down on those decisions, and is there also Saudi Arabian investment on the horizon? We're going to go through it all here today. Welcome back to TurkTalksFC. Please subscribe to the channel for daily Manchester United videos, like the video, get involved in the comments, it helps me out a lot. Let's get straight into these quotes because it's very interesting. So, Sir Jim Ratcliffe, he spoke with The Times on the Business podcast, and as we know by now, characteristically honest about Manchester United and the current state of play. And first of all, he discussed Ruben Amorim, and once again, he heavily backed the Manchester United head coach. This is what he said. The press, sometimes I don't understand. They want overnight success. They think it's a light switch, you know? You flick a switch and it's all going to be roses tomorrow. We have a long-term plan. We have to be patient. It isn't a light switch. And you can't run a club like Manchester United on knee-jerk reactions to some journalist who goes off every week. Now, I do agree that the media coverage of Manchester United is just madness at the best of times because the British media needs this football club to survive. Trust me, I've just finished 5 years at the Daily Express. I was a senior sports reporter over there. Manchester United news is like oxygen to the British media. It's just a matter of fact. That said, there are knee-jerk reactions, and then there's demanding a bit better than not winning back-to-back Premier League games for a year. You know, recently I think criticism of Ruben Amorim has been pretty fair because he's not getting the results. He's been there for nearly a year now. The results aren't really coming. Okay, the start of the season hasn't been an absolute nightmare, but it hasn't been good either. He needs to start winning football matches. Ruben Amorim is a good guy. This is obviously Ratcliffe. I would say Ruben has not had the best of seasons, too, right? He needs to demonstrate that he is a great coach over 3 years. Yeah, I'd give him 3 years. That's where I would be. 3 years because football isn't overnight. This was maybe the headline-stealing quote, wasn't it? Ruben Amorim is going to get 3 years, according to Sir Jim Ratcliffe. Does this mean the next 2 seasons after this one? Or does it mean next season, accounting for last season? Now, part of me does really rate and appreciate that United now have an ownership figure who speaks publicly so regularly after an age of Glazer silence. Because transparency as a football fan is nice, right? It's nice to know what the club is thinking from the very top. And as much as it has pained me to watch United for the last couple of seasons, I think it's quite nice to know that we're just going to stick with a manager for once. We're going to stick with him through the worst of the worst, because this is the worst of the worst, and we're just going to see where we end up on the other side. But, at what point does patience become naivety? What if United are stuck in 14th, 15th by Christmas again, with little hope of European qualification? Are we just going to be watching, hoping things suddenly turn? Now, I personally don't think Ratcliffe's comments here should be taken so literally. You know, I think Ineos will be desperate to save face, and they won't want to sack another manager very quickly. But at the same time, there may come a point where they are forced to do what is right for the club and what is right for their reputation, because United cannot slip any further. And this was Ratcliffe's third thing about Ruben Amorim. It was 3 years for Sir Alex Ferguson. Look at Arteta at Arsenal. He had a miserable time for the first couple of years. I remember the calls for Sir Alex Ferguson's sacking during his first 2 years. Look at Arteta at Arsenal. He went through tough times in his first 2 years. We look at the results, but we need to be patient and take a long-term view. I don't know about you, but I am absolutely sick to death of seeing this Alex Ferguson comparison. It was about 40 years ago. Football has changed so much since then, and I understand the meaning behind it, you know? It's like that picture, the meme of the man mining, and he gets so close to the diamonds, and then he turns around, this close on the diamonds. There is a feeling of that in football, isn't there, where you're waiting on a manager, you're giving him time and patience and patience and patience, but the results just aren't coming, and you have to make a call at one point. Arteta or Arsenal stuck it out with Arteta. But that said, it's another popular comparison. And while he did slump to back-to-back 8th place finishes at the start of his Arsenal reign, it wasn't as bad as this. It was never as bad as this. And he won an FA Cup at the start of his reign. He won a Community Shield. Now, he hasn't won anything since. Literally nothing. 2nd place trophy. But right now, you'd probably take United challenging for the Premier League title every season and reaching Champions League semi-finals over what we're currently seeing, right? So I think there's on one side, yes, there is reason to stick with Ruben Amorim, but surely it will get to a point where you've just got to make the call. And I really hope it's the alternative and he makes things click. So this is the second topic Ratcliffe discussed, the Glazer love-in. It's not going to happen. That's Joel Glazer asking him to sack Ruben Amorim. It's not going to happen. But he then assured the interviewer that the Glazers were happy for him to take full control of football operations. That probably sums it up. We're local and they're at the other side of the pond. That's a long way away to try and manage a football club as big, as complex as Manchester United. We're here with feet on the ground. They get a bad rep, but they are really nice people and they are really passionate about the club. So Sir Jim Ratcliffe's been bigging up the Glazer family again. On the face of it, it's such a big own goal. By waxing lyrical about those leeches is almost guaranteed to turn his reputation with Man United fans even more sour. But if he's asked about them, he's not going to ignore it, is he? So firstly, another strong show of backing for Ruben Amorim, literally saying the Glazers have no say in the matter. Okay, so he's content with Amorim right now, we understand that. But he doesn't need to say they're passionate about the club. He's doing too much there. We all know the Glazers are not passionate about Manchester United. If they were passionate about Manchester United and not passionate about lining their pockets and funding their NFL franchise, they wouldn't have left us over £1 billion in debt. They wouldn't have neglected Old Trafford and Carrington to the place where we've had to spend £50 million to redo Carrington and potentially £2 billion to build a new stadium and knock down one of the most iconic stadiums in world football. And if they cared, they wouldn't have not communicated with fans for the last 20 years and never showed their faces. On the other hand, Jimmy wants that majority stake. You know, he wants that full sale, and he's not going to get it by firing shots at the majority owners, is he? He's a smart man. He'll know how to handle the situation and ultimately get what he wants. Now, he's previously expressed the frustration with the Glazer family, having to basically shoulder all of the criticism for their failings since 2005. He's been getting all the criticism. That's as spicy as it's going to get in terms of Ratcliffe criticising the Glazers. But as I say, he's not going to hammer them publicly. I personally would be very surprised if Sir Jim Ratcliffe wasn't the majority owner by 2030. But that's just my personal opinion. The Academy. Now, these quotes worry me a bit. They do. The Academy has really slipped at Manchester United. You need the Academy to be producing talent all the time. It helps you financially. That's not a light switch. You don't solve the Academy problem overnight. It takes time. We just recruited a new Academy director. Obviously speaking about Stephen Torpey there, who has replaced Nick Cox as the Academy director. Now, I do completely agree that United need to improve at selling players in general, including academy players for pure profit. But Ratcliffe comes across here as if that should be the priority. What about youth, courage, success? That is the Manchester United DNA. We're not Chelsea. We are sure as hell not Manchester City. And the Academy hasn't even slipped that much. United continue to create top-level footballers. In recent years, Alejandro Garnacho, Kobbie Mainoo, started for England in the Euros final. Ballon d'Or nominee, Scott McTominay. Marcus Rashford, who's basically been one of the faces of English football for the last decade. Anthony Elanga's just been sold for £50+ million. Mason Greenwood. You can say what you want about what sort of human being he is. I have my very strong feelings on that, and I'm sure everyone else does. But there's a top footballer there. But again, you can't disassociate the two. But look at the current crop as well. Shea Lacey, Chido Obi, JJ Gabriel, Jaden Washi, the Fletcher brothers, Jim Thwaite, Jace Fitzgerald. United have a really exciting crop of players coming through. You know, Bendito Montato, Jaden Camerson. It worries me that United could be looking at these talents, licking their lips as if they're sellable assets, like they're a prize pig at the butchers, rather than trying to blood them into the first team, because that's what we've done throughout our history. Most of the time, it's served us very well. We can just do that, rely on our academy, and save money on big money signings by doing that. I don't want to see United solely using the academy and improving the academy just to start this selling process. I love United using academy players, and if that ends, part of the club dies for me. Now, job cuts. We all know the problems with the job cuts. The costs were just too high. There were fantastic people at Manchester United, but there was also a level of mediocrity, and it had become bloated. I got a lot of flack for the free lunches. That's removing the free lunches from Carrington. But no one's ever given me a free lunch. That's definitely a lie, let's be honest. The biggest correlation, like it or not, between results and any external factor is profitability. The more cash you have got, the better squad you can build. That makes sense on the face of it. Over 400 employees have lost their jobs since Sir Jim Ratcliffe invested in the club. Objectively, that's a horrible thing. And I'm sure the majority of that workforce, the vast majority, contributed a lot to Manchester United. But, and I'm not glorifying redundancies or people losing their jobs in any way, shape or form here, but action was necessary. And it goes back to the Glazers' neglect. About 1,200 employees were at the club when Ratcliffe arrived. As big an organisation as Manchester United is, that is ludicrous. At the time, I think the second biggest workforce in the Premier League was Liverpool, with 700, 800 staff members. That's a big difference. United were losing money at an unsustainable rate. And Ratcliffe, a very, very successful businessman, he knows what he's doing. He took action that he deemed necessary to turn things around and make United profitable again. The thing I would criticise Ineos for is the way they went about it, you know. Assuring staff that the first wave of redundancies was going to be the only wave, only to then do a second wave, that's brutal, you know. That's not on at all. And then there's the smaller matters, you know, the free lunches, the staff perks, the Christmas parties, the free travel to the FA Cup final. We're Manchester United. We're unique because we're a global mammoth of a football club, but at the same time, there's that family feel. And all the staff members that I've known at Manchester United, some of them are part of this, they've lost their jobs. They always say that. It's unique because for such a big club, it's just a big family. Everyone looks out for each other. Everyone works for each other. By removing all of those things, as well as getting rid of the long-term staff members who have done a good job since Sir Alex Ferguson was in charge, you're sort of removing that feel a little bit. But I do understand why it's necessary, because this is what Ratcliffe said. Manchester United will become the most profitable football club in the world, in my view. And from that will stem, I hope, a long-term, sustainable, high level of football. Now, obviously, this is Ratcliffe's ultimate ambition. You know, morbidly speaking, he hasn't got all the time in the world. You know, he's an older guy. He's not going to be patient about this. This is the legacy he wants to leave behind, fixing Manchester United. If United are to become the most profitable club in world football, there is one key to that, and again, it's Ratcliffe's legacy. It's the new stadium. You know, £2 billion stadium, 100,000 capacity. That is absolutely the key for Manchester United to become the most profitable club in the world. And yes, that probably will involve increased ticket prices, which scares me. It will involve bigger hospitality, maybe a risk of losing the fan culture a little bit. But this is Ratcliffe's master plan at the end of the day. And is this the secret key behind the stadium? Saudi Arabian investment. Now, this went absolutely nuclear last night. It's got 2.8 million views as of this morning, nearly 10,000 likes, 3,000 retweets. So, Turkey Al-Sheikh, I'm going to go into who he is in a second. He tweeted this last night. The happiest news I heard today is that Manchester United is now in an advanced stage of finalising a deal to sell to a new investor. I hope they're better than the previous owners. Now, Turkey Al-Sheikh, he's a 44-year-old Saudi government official, and he's the chairman of the General Entertainment Authority. You might not have heard of that, but surely you've heard of Riyadh season. In Saudi Arabia, it's the period of the year, I think from October to March, loads of big sporting events take place in Saudi Arabia. It's becoming a big hub for sports, and he's the reason for that. He founded Riyadh season. He's the reason for Saudi Arabia's huge investment in boxing, like Tyson Fury and Usyk, their fight, loads more, Anthony Joshua, and WWE, he's responsible for the several huge fights. WrestleMania is going to be in Saudi Arabia in 2027. That is a massive deal. It's the first ever WrestleMania away from the US. Riyadh have got that. That's down to him. In 2024, his net worth was estimated to be £2 billion. Ratcliffe is currently worth £13 billion. The Glazers, £7.5 billion. So, it dwarfs him realistically. But he's a powerful man, and he knows a lot of people in sport. And, he has 7 million followers on Twitter. Now, obviously, that isn't the parameter of, how big or important a person is. But if he speaks, it could be worth listening. I don't know what he's on about. I honestly don't expect anything to come from this. Whenever someone speaks publicly about something happening, about Manchester United, the ownership status, investment, unless it's like a reputable journalist, I tend not to listen, to be honest. United's a public traded company. People have their own interests. It's just all messy, for me, I'm not paying that much attention to it. But it could be worth listening to because he's a very influential man. And I'm just thinking, this new stadium, we don't know how United are funding this stadium yet. We know there's probably going to be some naming rights, if we're being real. And there's going to have to be outside investment. I'm just saying, Saudi Arabia could be involved. They could be involved. But the way he words this, advanced stage of finalizing a sell to a new investor. The way he words that sounds like he's not speaking about himself, or he's not speaking about Saudi Arabia. He's speaking about someone else. So could we hear some big news about new investment in Manchester United very soon? If we do, I think it is almost certain to be tied to the new stadium. If someone invests in the stadium but also gets a chunk of the club, that could be a play. It could also be a great route to get the Glazers gone, because all the communication about the new stadium so far, the Glazers have been nowhere to be seen. They're the majority owners of the club, nowhere to be seen. I don't think that's for nothing. That's what I think, and that is the Sir Jim Ratcliffe interview roundup. Please be sure to subscribe to the channel if you're new and you enjoyed the video. Please like the video, really appreciate it. And if you reach the end, if you reach into this one, it's the longest one I've done so far. If you've reached the end, comment Jim. If you have, absolute legend. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next one.